Fred, what would you say are some reasons that an adult person would hide things, lie, and be deceiving when trying to get into a relationship with another person?
Well, the specialist Paul Ekman mentions a few reasons, and basically it's typically because we want to get something that we wouldn't get if we didn't lie. We want to help someone else get something they wouldn't get if we didn't lie. We want to protect ourselves from something or to protect someone else. So typically what we observe is people thinking, if I don't lie, if I don't obfuscate the truth, if I don't minimize something, I can't start the relationship. They won't be interested in me. And that's sort of the lying by omission. But then you also have people lying by commission. If I tell this lie, then I can start the relationship. And I sort of see these two balance out. I know that there's no exact line in the sand of what is too much, what is too little. It's understandable to sort of, let's say, mitigate some of the details, not give 100% of the information. It might be too much. It might require a lot of context to actually be properly understood. So sometimes it's understandable, and sometimes it just clearly is not acceptable.
So what type of things would you say like are not acceptable? Like what, I mean, how would a person gauge what needs to be disclosed and for a person to be upfront about and what's acceptable to not disclose and to keep under wraps? What would you say?
Well, that depends pretty much on every person. I'd sort of suggest that my rule of thumb is if you knew about this from the get-go, would it have changed your decision to start the relationship? And if it would have in a substantial way, then basically you got scammed. And this can be, you ask for some examples, it can be someone who lies about their profession, lies about their income, so is misleading in terms of sort of what's in the package, what is the person getting. They can also be lying about their age. For some people, it's lying about addictions they might have. Other people will be deceiving when it comes to the number of past partners they've had, for instance. I think the past is really interesting because we can say, well, the past is the past, it's not important. I wouldn't quite agree with that. I'd say the past is a pretty good indicator of what to expect in the future, unless there's a really good reason why someone has changed. And, that can be someone who, let's say, says they want a family and a stable relationship, but in the past 10, 15 years, they've spent pretty much every weekend going out clubbing, partying, drinking, having very short-term flings with people. That to me is someone who enjoys going out, partying, drinking, and having short-term flings with people. They might say they
Mm.
want a family, but if they haven't indicated that something substantial has changed, there's no credible reason to believe it.
And even if they have a reason that I guess they have apparently changed, are you seeing that change, or is it just words and false promises and, as we know, future faking, where it's like, no, no, I've changed now because I'm religious, or I've changed now because I've changed my mind, or I found Buddhism, or stuff like this. It's like, hey, that's what they're saying, but are they actually practicing and living that change, or is it just kind of empty words?
Absolutely. Are they practicing and living it? And also, to what extent did the past behavior, to what extent was the past behavior a problem for them? If the person loved what they were doing, they might have changed, but they still loved it. I remember when you spend time traveling in Thailand, a lot of sayings that go on, and all of these stories about people who meet someone working in a bar, try to save her from horrible conditions. But then the saying is, you can take the girl out of the bar, but you can't take the bar out of the girl. So if someone enjoys that lifestyle, they're likely to continue it. There was a funny scene in the Australian movie Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, where somebody marries a Thai lady who enjoyed performing, continues to perform, and he's just distraught and heartbroken. It's a rather funny scene. It's really important. If the behavior works for someone, they'll continue. The alcoholic enjoys being an alcoholic. Otherwise, they change. And if someone's changed, and when you talk to alcoholics who are no longer alcoholics, they will say, the reason why I changed was that behavior was destroying my life. So I was heavily motivated to change, and I've demonstrated it. But if they don't have a good reason to stop the past behavior, they're likely to continue it, even though they often will be ashamed and they won't want to mention it, or they'll minimize it or say
Yes.
wasn't that bad. Well, it wasn't unreasonable. And that's often where digging more is important. You say you used to do this. What specifically? How much? How often? What frequency? we often don't want to do it. But if we want to understand, quote unquote, the package we're getting, it's pretty important to be specific.
100%. And I think you're touching on a key point here, Fred, where a person that really does have a great need or enjoyment for something and they're not quite ready to let go of it yet will certainly be tempted if they have an option where they're like, okay, I can get in a relationship with this person, but I still like this other lifestyle thing that I'm really needing and wanting for myself. I want to have both. So obviously that's also a very big temptation to, like you said, to minimize something, to hide it, to lie about it, to sweep it under the rug or minimize it. And I think that's a very common reason also that one would hide something or try and be deceptive when getting into a relationship because they're not quite ready to give up that other thing yet, but they also don't want to lose the opportunity of a relationship with you. And I would say that would be a common one. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, very much. It's we don't want to lose the opportunity. We know that if we tell the entire truth, probably, well, it's if anyone told the entire truth about themselves, most people would be aghast and would run away screaming, unless they can tell it with enough context and subtlety and being at a point where it's sort of okay. We all have shortcomings. We've all had shortcomings. A lot of things we're not proud of. It's part of being human. And it's one of the points is that if we can accept how flawed we are, we might be able to accept how flawed other people are. But then it's about honesty. Where are we really at? Are we really in a place where we can observe this and accept this and have the honest conversations? And that might be one of the big indicators is if we're not willing to ask these questions of someone else, maybe we're not willing to ask them of ourselves. When I observe when people meet someone and they don't really want to know if the other person truly is available, if they're seeing people, because maybe they themselves are not truly available and they're also still seeing other people. So often it's a bit of a mirror of the things we don't want to know about others are things we don't want to tell about ourselves, because otherwise we're very comfortable just saying it. And another point here is we might be afraid of what we would hear, and therefore we don't want to bring the topic on the table because we'd like to have a different kind of outcome. But if we meet someone who generally seems to be our cup of tea, it's a good idea to ask, like, where exactly are you at? And fair question, how come you are single? How come you got to this age without having a family or being married? It's a fair question. Like, what does it say about the way you see life? And there are many valid answers. But sometimes the answer is, well, I enjoy the single life. Fair enough.
Exactly. 100%. And also, that's a very good point that you make. And on the other side of the page is that if a person is not willing to, to share things with you about themselves, that does have an impact on you and your decision to get involved with them and can be a detriment to you. What does that say about their, I guess, their level of care and concern for you in the future of the relationship? Like if they're not willing to share things with you that are going to significantly impact you, like you said, like lifestyle choices or financial situation, or even if they're hiding health issues from you that are going to cause your life to be different to what you're expecting, what does that say about the future relationship where they're starting out in a way where they're not even considering the impact on you? So what's that going to lead to in the future in the relationship?
There's a good point. And, there's sometimes playing the sunk cost fallacy. So start a relationship under false pretenses and then spring the information on the other person, be it illness or financial woes or something else, at a point where it seems difficult for the other person to leave. And that's, it's misleading. It's misleading with what's in the package. It's misleading with what the person signs up for. I think it's a big question, did I really sign up for this?
Hmm.
I'm sure we both have examples of situations, either for ourselves or other people, where they didn't get what they signed up for, and it wasn't easy to walk away from basically what was a bait and switch. I show you
Exactly.
something,
A scam.
yeah, and then you get something different. You basically get scammed, and it's difficult for you to walk away because you've invested 1, 2, 3 years. That's a very common cognitive bias we have is I invested 1, 2, 3 years, 10 years. Yeah, it's like, yeah, but you got scammed. This is,
Exactly.
you know,
And now
this
we have
is
to split, and now we're sharing assets, and maybe there's even children, and there's photos, there's memories. Like it's hard to get out when these secrets are being exposed.
absolutely. And it's often actually hard to admit that it's true, that we got scammed, that it's true that we signed up for something and we didn't get it, and we didn't see it for all of these years. And then, all of these things, difficulty to recognize the truth, that we were deceived, that really hurts the ego. Then who is the person who deceived us? It's not the person whom we signed up to be with, or the person we thought we were with. And then we invested all of this time and it's all lost, as it were. And then people end up being in denial. That's a very bad sign. If we're in denial regarding the situation, how we feel about it, it's tough to build something positive in the future when we're in denial.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%.